who will be our main presenter for the Power of Networking session. Tom is the Assistant Director for Graduate and Executive Programs in Business at Bowling Green State University. His primary focus is academic advising for the Executive Master of Organizational Development and the Doctorate in Organizational Development and Change programs. He has had a lot of other experiences prior to that, one of them being Vice President of Learning and Development in TNS North America, a media company. Throughout his career, Tom has worked in the advertising and marketing research industry, gaining experience in training, customer service, and sales. Tom received his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Toledo and Master of Organizational Development degree from Bowling Green State University. Tom is active in the community and currently serves as the president for the Owens Community College Alumni Association. He has been past president of the Greater Toledo Area Chapter of the Association for Talent Development and the Workforce Readiness Chair for the North Ohio Resources Association. When he's not working or in a board meeting, you'll find Tom running or biking around town. He lives in Perrysburg with his wife and 2 teenage sons. My other guest is Steve Stockdale. Steve will join Tom after the presentation to create that panel discussion that I mentioned earlier for students to ask questions and they can address those questions from the audience. Steve is the Human Resources Director for Block Communications, Broadband, and Publishing divisions. Locally, he leads the development and implementation of human resources strategies for Buckeye Broadband and the Toledo Blade. Steve graduated from Owens Community College in 2007 with an Associate of Applied Business, majoring Business Management Technology. Steve serves the community as a member of the Board of Directors for the Owens Community College Alumni Association, Leadership Toledo, and Lucas County Workforce Development Board. He also serves as a committee member for the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce Reentry Development Initiative. And as I'm reading these introductions, 3 things come to my mind that our speakers have in common. They both started their journeys at Owens Community College, and they have reached a lot of success in their professional life in spite of that or because of that. And I see them as being great role models for our students at Owens, how far you can go in your career. They have also been very good friends of our college and of the School of Business and always have been ready to help us with our career management events, and we are very grateful for that. And with that, I would like to invite Tom Daniels to start us with our presentation. Welcome, Tom.
Ready, thank you so much for the introduction, and it's great to be joined here with my friend Steve as well. And yeah, Steve and I connect in the business community quite frequently. As you mentioned, we're both part of the Alumni Association, or have been involved with the Alumni Association there at Owens. And we have been involved in Leadership Toledo together. We see each other randomly in the community with a number of different events. So sometimes people say, "Hey, Tom, you're everywhere," and it's funny because I see Steve at a lot of those same places. So Reddy, thank you very much for the introduction. Everybody, it's great to be here. I'm really always pleased to get the opportunity to be able to come back and be involved with Owens in any capacity, any way I can help the students. You know, Owens has had the tagline, "Your success starts here," for forever, and I would contend that my success started right there at Owens Community College. So very proud alum, very proud to be back. So today, as Reddy mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about professional networking and the importance of professional networking, and really about how it does build long-term relationships that lead to success. So I'm going to share a couple of slides, and I'll give you a chance to be ready on with your mouse to be able to click on the hands up, because I'm just kind of interested to see how many of you guys will raise your hand to a couple different images? So when you think about professional networking, how many of you feel this way? How many people feel a lot of anxiety when it comes to professional networking? There you go. How about this one? Anybody afraid of networking? All right. How about this? How many of you feel like, oh, I hate this when you get into some type of networking environment? See a lot of hands going up. And then how about this one? Steve, I expect your hand to go up on this one. Whether you like it or not, you do it very, very well. All right, great. So again, networking can be quite different to everybody, and we all have our own reactions to the way networking is. And I think really it's really about the way you look at networking and what the opportunities it might bring. So I definitely fall into this I love networking space, and part of that is just because I really enjoy meeting people and interacting with people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I thought it might be interesting and productive to even give you guys a little bit of perspective of my background. I know you got a little bit of that in my introduction from Reddy, but at the same time, I thought this might be able to help provide you a little perspective. Frankly, I am a first-generation college student, and I attended Owens to start my college career. But so you get a little idea of both my educational background as well as kind of the work experience, and you see how they line up. I worked for a grocery chain called Food Town, which only if you're old enough, probably got to be 30 to even know who Food Town was. But I worked there while I was going through my time at Owens, and then right out of Owens, I got to work for a company called Advo. It's an advertising firm, and got to work with them for a number of years while I actually completed my degree at the University of Toledo. And after completing my degree at University of Toledo, by the way, to start adding up 1991, that was January of 91 through December of 98 when I finished at University of Toledo. So 8 years to finish that undergrad. They don't call me doctor because I didn't finish a doctorate degree in 8 years. I actually finished my undergrad in 8 years. And then, as you see, I worked for a couple of companies then, and then I went to work for a company called TNS, or NFO, which became TNS, which now has become Kantar. And then I did my graduate work at the University of Toledo while I was working at Bowling Green State University while I was working full time. And now, a number of years after graduating, I actually work for Bowling Green State University. So it's been a great track record, and what I would again share is my success started at Owens, and that's part of the reason I am so adamant about making sure that we give that opportunity to be able to come back and share our background and expertise with the students at Owens. So let's make a case for networking. Many times when you start thinking about why you go to school, it's to be able to get a job or get a better job or get a promotion or try to change careers. So let's talk about the case for networking. This slide, it gives a little bit of data that's a little bit dated because it's dated 2015. So it's a little bit dated, but really not that old. But this was a research study that was done by LinkedIn and Adler Group. And it really talks about how people get jobs. And the orange bar there really indicates the number of jobs that were secured through networking. There's 4 different classifications that they have of employees. There's the underemployed or unemployed. You can see 57% of the people found their job through networking. Only 31% through applying for jobs on job boards, Indeed, etc. Right? Those who are employed but actively looking, because that happens because we're looking for promotion, we're looking for a new job, you can see 48%. So still higher than those number that applied for jobs. Those who are employed but tiptoeer. So those employed but tiptoeer are kind of like, well, I'm not really looking for a job, but if the right thing came along, I'm out of here. I would be open to options. And you can see 63% of those jobs were secured through networking that way. And then those who are employed, they're quite passive. So they're happy with what they do. They're not really looking, but people come to them and say, hey, we got an opening at our company, and I think you'd be a perfect fit for that. And then what I would always recommend, and I recommend to students all the time, is you turn down job offers not job interviews. Let me say that again. You turn down job offers, not job interviews, because you never know what they might share. So, but again, big case for networking, why it's so important to make sure that you're out there and you're letting people know about your background, your expertise, what you can do, what you're looking for, etc. is because in many cases, that's how you're going to find a job. I did find some additional data. It's a little bit more updated, but on topresume.com, 60% of jobs are found through networking. Some think that that's higher, like 80, 85%. 75% of resumes are rejected before reaching the hiring manager. Think about that. So if you're applying for jobs on Indeed.com, how often are you really going to get a chance to be able to be considered for a job? And 75% of them are the resumes are going to be rejected before you even get to the hiring manager. 77% of recruiters rely on LinkedIn. Highly recommend that you get on LinkedIn. I'll give you a resource for that later. Maybe 5 applicants out of hundreds earn a face-to-face interview. So think about that. If only 5 out of hundreds of applicants are even going to get a face-to-face interview, what opportunities do you have to accelerate that process or improve your chances to be able to get one of those face-to-face interviews? I kind of feel like if you had somebody who was your advocate saying, hey, this person's at least worth a conversation, they're sending the resume in, that at least then you got a chance. Okay? And then the average job search takes about 5 months. I did put this additional note at the bottom because I think it's important, especially for students. 50% of applicants have been rejected based on social media profiles. Keep your social media clean the best you can. It doesn't mean that if we see you drinking on the weekends that you're going to be rejected, because frankly, guess what? HR professionals like to drink on the weekends too. Some anyway, right? But you know, if you're being a bully online and you're causing trouble, then why would we want to hire you and have you do that in our firm? So again, there's a tremendous opportunity when you start thinking about networking. When you look at all these points and go, hey, look, if I had somebody being my advocate and recommending me for a job, or knows my background experience, and they can say, hey, I'm worth somebody taking a look at and have a conversation with, you can eliminate a lot of these elements. So there's definitely some true opportunities to be able to get out there and start and network with professionals. At the end of the day, networking is all about relationships. I assume some of you have friends. How did you meet those friends? It was probably informal networking, right? You met them at a party, you met them in class, you met them through somebody else, through some interaction. Those are all just networking opportunities, and all of your family and friends are part of your network. You may not look at them that way, but they are part of your network, and at some point, the goal would be that you would improve and grow your professional network. So why do people network? It's pretty simple. More business, right? They're trying to drive more business. They're trying to get grow the business that they have. They're trying to land a job. So many of you may fall in that situation. You're looking for a new job. You're looking for a job. You're looking for a promotion, some opportunity to be able to transition from where you're at to where you want to be. Sometimes you're about learning something new. I know a number of people who have joined local organizations because they want to learn something new about that space. I have a very good friend of mine who's an HR professional with Rudolph Libby, and so she's got a real good solid core in the HR business partner space. But one of the elements of HR she doesn't have a lot of background is around training and development. And so she's looking at joining one of the local training and development groups to be able to upskill herself in that space. And sometimes it's social reasons. You're just trying to, you're new to an area, you're new to even an industry. You want to meet people in that space. And then sometimes it's to solve a problem. If you're really trying to solve a problem, sometimes you grow your network, and then you find people who can answer questions, people who can give you advice to be able to help you solve a problem. And these really come out of a book called Knockout Networking. It's a few years old. Solid, very solid resource. So if you're looking to look for a resource to be able to grow your network and give you some ideas, Knockout Networking is a great option. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So I like to look at networking as a process, and really there's a 5-step process, and we'll kind of go through each one of these in a little bit of detail, but not going, no, I don't want to go too deep, but it'll give you something to work with. So the process is really to research, join and engage in some fashion, attend in some fashion, get involved, and then at some point you're going to lead. So we'll dig into each one of these a little bit and kind of go from there. So let's start with research, which is step one. When you start looking at opportunities to be able to network and how you would grow or build your professional network, you really want to look at what are you most interested in, both from a career standpoint. Maybe it's just a passion that you have. I mean, if you're, let's say you're a model train builder, there are organizations that are model train builder organizations that are associations for that. So it might even just be a hobby or something that you're passionate about as opposed to maybe for business reasons. And then even looking at down the road, what is it that you want to do in the future? I will tell you that I was part of an organization called the Association for Training and Development. It's got a new name, but that I was in that organization many years before I ever had a role in training and development. And part of it was I knew that that's the direction I was heading. And I wanted to meet the people who were doing that. I wanted to be able to have some conversations. What is it that I need to learn to be able to move into that type of role? When you start looking at opportunities and organizations, there are local, there are regional, and there are national or international. And wow, with the tools that we have today, tools like Zoom, the tool that we're using today, these opportunities really allow us to be able to break barriers and really meet people from anywhere in the world. I will tell you that I'm part of the HR circles, regionally for sure, but that I was in a kind of I'll call it, it's a Twitter chat for an organization, and met a guy from Spain who talks about something called behavioral economics, really interesting topic. And he said, hey, I want to learn more about that. So we did a Zoom call so I could learn a little bit more about what behavioral economics is. And the guy was in Spain, so we were able to kind of set that up. So he's now become part of my network. I actually see him as a potential resource. Maybe he can present that topic at a conference, or if I need more information about it. So really, you can look locally all the way across across the globe. What are different opportunities for networking opportunities? Your faculty. You think they know people throughout your community that have jobs in roles and positions that you might be interested in? I'm confident they do. As a matter of fact, I graduated from a few years ago, as you saw, back in December of 1993. I'm still connected to a number of the faculty members who work there in the college, and then even some who have retired from Owens, and I still have those connections. In fact, brought one of them a couple of them have actually taught at BGSU as adjuncts, because we still have those connections. Steve and I are alums. There are so many alums in the region. As you probably have heard, 70% of Owens alum live in the region. That's an incredible opportunity for you to be able to connect with people who are alums, who are doing jobs just like you, that you would like to do. Advisory boards. There's advisory boards for all of the programs in the School of Business at Owens. And so I know Steve participates in one, I participate in one, so we are links as well. Mentors. Hopefully you have a mentor. If not, find one. Highly recommend that you find a mentor, somebody you can have a conversation with and learn about. And then, of course, they'll be connected to other people that they can introduce you to, so you can have some more conversations about those careers or about those roles that you would like to move into. And then truly online, tools like LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, highly recommend it. Recruiters use it to help find jobs. It's also a great way to build and maintain a professional network. That's effectively what I use my LinkedIn profile for, is really to be able to continue to be linked with a number of people and into different industries. And so when I meet somebody at a conference, it's great to reconnect with them on LinkedIn. Now I have their contact information. We'll be able to stay in contact. I don't have to try to get a business card and add it to my phone and then try to remember to send them a note. I'll just connect with them on LinkedIn, and occasionally when I see people have an update on LinkedIn or they like something, hey, it's great to see you on LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn. So highly recommend that. And then LinkedIn groups. There's a number of groups on LinkedIn for specific topics, specific areas of interest. So look at those, join a couple of those, and see who you might be able to connect with and learn from. And then again, there's Twitter chats. I'd never really thought about this, but if you're interested in HR, there's a podcast called the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. And every other Sunday, the second and fourth Sundays of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, they do a Twitter chat where people just join in this conversation. They share 5 or 6 questions and people share their information. Just a great way to be able to meet people and connect each other who have similar interests. So I'd never really thought about that before, but I've seen it happen recently. So when you start really looking at how can you get involved in networking, there's so many different ways, and you just got to do a little bit of research and figure that. When you do start looking at those opportunities, my recommendations is that you got to really keep in 3 major considerations. One is how much time do you have available to certain organizations or to certain opportunities. Is there a fiscal or a financial impact? Some organizations are going to charge an annual fee to be a member, so making sure that you have those, that there's ROI on that, right? You want to make sure that you're going to get some return on your investment. And then how much effort? How much effort do you need to put into to that organization to be able to get out what you need? Of course, if you're a student, you're going to have to balance that with the coursework and whatever else you have going on in your life. So just make sure you keep those 3 things in mind. I'm sharing a few of Toledo area networking. These are specific organizations that I am aware of and that you may want to research. The first one on that list, Epic Toledo, is one I highly recommend all of you consider joining. It is a young professionals networking organization. It's not industry specific. It is open to all young professionals. In fact, it's open even to us older professionals, but they do cater to kind of a 25 to 40 crowd. In fact, they're doing their Leadership Summit conference virtually this week, which I've been involved in a couple of those sessions, and they're really, really good. So definitely something you should consider. There's an HR organization. There's one around talent development. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, the Women's Entrepreneurial Network, both men and women can be part of that. If you're interested in advertising, there's tons of local chambers of commerce. Almost every town has one. There's something called BNI. BNI is the Business Networking International. It is about business networking. There is a fee and there's some attendance requirements, so be aware of that. The Toledo Society of Professional Engineers, again, the opportunity if you have engineering is your space. The International Association of Insurance Professionals, if you have an interest in that space. There's all these types of organizations. So do some online research, find out what organization might be best for you to be able to link to people who have similar interests. And again, these are more of the, I guess I would say, when looking at joining organizations and being part of them. All right, so now once we've done some research and we've figured out where we want to be, we're going to go into joining and engaging those organizations. When you join an organization, or you're going to attend, or you're going to build a relationship with somebody to build a network, the first thing that you should do is really think about setting a goal. What are your goal for that connection? What is your goal for going to that meeting? People who are introverts tend to say, hey, networking is really hard for me because I'm an introvert and I don't like to, people exhaust me, and that's okay. I know a lot of people who are part of large networking organizations who are total introverts. The big thing to do is just set a goal for yourself, because once you meet that goal, you give yourself freedom to leave. You can go after you're done with that, after you've met that goal. Let's say it's, hey, I want to connect to 2 people I've never talked to before. Once you meet that goal, you've given yourself the freedom to go home, go leave, or stay. But if you give yourself that goal, it'll give you a reason to go. You know why you're there, and then you give yourself freedom to go. Find out how you can help others. That should be your focus when you're attending a session, because really networking is give and take. If you're going to join an organization, ask if you can meet a leader before you go to some type of event, whether it's virtual or in person. Because if you meet a leader, that means when you show up, you're going to know somebody, right? And most of the time, they're going to say, "Hey, well, I know who I want to, make sure I introduce you to these 2 or 3 people." And then you get introduced to 2 or 3 people, and then they introduce you to 2 or 3 people, and then that's how it grows. But being able to meet a leader initially, you'll at least know somebody who's going to be there that you would know. You might even gather a friend who has similar interest. Hey, I want you to join with me. Let's go to this meeting, or let's go to engage in this type of engagement. And we'll separate, we'll go talk to a couple people, and then come back together and see how that went. So definitely get the opportunity to be able to meet a leader. You can use LinkedIn. So if, let's say you wanted to join, I'm going to use the local HR association. So it's called the Northwest Ohio Human Resources Association, or NORA. Well, if you're going to join that organization, go on LinkedIn and see who else is a member. Maybe there's somebody in your circles who is already a member, and then you can send them a note and say, hey, I saw the meeting was happening next week. I was wondering if you were going, because it'd be great to know somebody when I get there, right? By the way, if you join that organization or considering joining that organization, let me know. I'm at a lot of their stuff. I'm on their board, so I'd be happy to introduce you to people that I know. At the end of the day, networking is give and take, right? So when you get engaged in an organization or in some type of networking opportunity, it's give and take. If it's just take, people will shut you down, right? So that's what we're going to kind of talk about too next. So once you've got engaged, you've researched, you've got joined and engaged in an organization, it's time to attend, whether it's an individual meeting or it's time to attend some type of networking event. Again, I can't stress this enough. Make sure that you're setting a goal before you go to that meeting. What are you hoping to accomplish? And why did you even join the organization? Or why did you set up this meeting with this individual? First impressions. That 3 is there is because you got 3 seconds to make that first impression. Right? Smile, right? Making sure that you're looking welcoming. If you're putting your head down and you're just kind of walking up to people and you're, right? They're like, oh, they're really shy. They're really scared. Right? Hey, I'm here to meet people, just be curious. And then be prepared to ask questions. I like to make sure that we're not talking about the weather, because everybody can talk about the weather. We can talk about, oh, yeah, this, hey, I'm happy it's Friday, right, or something. But maybe ask them a little bit about their job. Hey, what's happening exciting in your job today? Or what do you find most fascinating about the work that you get to do? Right? Something interesting that they would like to talk about, as opposed to the weather, the sports team. I mean, if they're interested in sports, maybe you could talk about a sports team, but right, make it something interesting that they would want to talk about. All right, so here's a big section that I think is really important. What else to do? On the left side are kind of things that you would do in general, whether you're meeting somebody via Zoom, or you're meeting somebody for coffee, or you're in a big networking session. But be genuinely interested in others. You can't fake this. You got to be able to. You got to be curious. You got to be interested in learning about what other people do. So asking good questions and then listening. Right? Learn to listen, and listen to learn. It's so important. When we listen to people, we learn a lot along that. Don't sell. Please do not sell. Do not sell on LinkedIn. Do not sell when you're going to a networking event. Do not sell when you're just meeting somebody for coffee to learn about their job. If you're there to learn about their job or their role, you shouldn't be selling. You schedule appointments for selling opportunities, right? Don't sell at a networking session, please. Nobody wants to be that. That's what scares people about going to networking, right? Is when when people are selling to you all the time. Follow up. If people are going to follow up. It's really that simple. Send them a note. Within a day, I typically am sending a note saying, "Hey, it was great to meet you. I would love to set up an opportunity to meet with you again. How does next Tuesday or Thursday look?" Right. So something like that. Be friendly. People who are friendly. That seems to be generally true. And then be, of course, confident. You know about you, right? So be confident about who you are, and when people can see that confidence. Now, the elements on the other side are much more for in person. Now, if I were doing this live when we were in person, we would talk about handing business cards. One of my favorite networking gurus, Debbie Peters, says, "I don't pass out a business card unless they ask." So she's not the person who, hey, how many business cards can I pass out in a meeting? Because that may not be what your goal is. And frankly, if I didn't ask for your business card, why do you think I want it, right? So she won't actually pass out a business card unless somebody asks for it. Now, she may initiate that by saying, "Hey, do you have a business card so that I can make sure I can keep in contact with you?" And then they typically will reciprocate, right? But have a business card. I know you're a student. That's okay. Get a business card. Vistaprint's for $5 or $10. You can order like 200 business cards. They'll at least have your phone number and email address on it. If you're a student, I would also put in, hey, what topics or what's your major, so that people have that background and they can make some connection to remember you by. But $5 or $10 for 250. By the way, it also, if you go to a job fair, it sets you apart from everybody else who's there. When you're passing out a business card before your resume, well, everybody else is just trying to get out their resume to as many people, and you present a business card, then they may follow up and ask you for it. Just definitely sets you apart. So I highly recommend that you get your own business cards. Shaking hands. Again, I'd probably show an example of shaking hands. Make sure it's a nice, good handshake, not the little fish thing. Nobody likes that, right? And guys, people wear rings. We don't have to break somebody's hand, right? If you start squishing people's fingers together, you're going to break your hand. The rings are going to hurt their fingers. Just a good firm handshake, and you don't hold it for long. You don't have to touch their elbows and their shoulder. Just a handshake and an eye contact is sufficient. Physical space. Be aware of your physical space. Again, if I were there, we'd probably do this in person. I'd have a couple people stand up in front of the group. But if you're standing directly face to face with somebody else, you're really kind of closing off anybody else from joining your conversation, and that may be okay if that's what you're trying to do. But if you're open to having people join your conversation, take a step back, right? You open it up and allow people to join your conversation. You're showing that we want more people to. So just be aware of your physical space and what kind of messages are you giving to other people who might be interested in joining. Food and beverage. I highly recommend food and beverage. Wait till you meet your goal. It's really hard to hold a plate of food and a cup of or beverage, and then shaking people's hands, and it just gets. And then you got broccoli in your you know what I'm talking about, right? So maybe a beverage in a hand. Leave your extra hand open so you can shake people's hand, right? Now we maybe do elbows or fist bumps or something, right? Hopefully we'll get to the point where we can shake hands. And then remembering names. It's really important that if you can find a system that works for you for remembering names, people love to hear their name, right? And so if you can use their name, that could be more precious. So there's a number of different tools out there online for helping you remember people's names. Okay, so it's a lot about attending, engaging with an individual. So once if you're joining a networking organization, once you've researched it, you've joined it, now you've been attending and engaged, at some point you're going to have to get more involved with that organization, and you should. Participating meetings. Different organizations have different types of meetings, different frequency of meetings, but attending those is important. Being able to, because when you start building relationships, seeing people over and over again. Again, Steve and I actually met through Leadership Toledo. I don't think I met Steve at the first or second or maybe even the third meeting of Leadership Toledo. Maybe by the fourth or the fifth, and then we would say hi to each other, and then we found out we were both alums, and then we started seeing each other at some chamber events, and that's how Steve and I got to know each other, right? But by the regular meetings and being interactive. Golf outings. Does everybody golf? We know not everybody golfs, but almost every organization has some type of golf outing. Even if you don't golf, volunteer. By the way, I highly recommend that you volunteer for the registration table. Registration table meets every single person that's there, right? You got to check everybody in, right? You're going to get to say hi to everybody. Oh, hi, I'm Bob, right? Hi, nice to meet you, right? Every single person. So even if you don't play, it's good to volunteer. That's how you can meet some more people. By the way, Owens runs a golf outing every year. We always are looking for help and volunteers on that. Usually happens in the fall semester. You need information on that, let me know. Social events. Sometimes Epic Toledo has multiple different types of events they have. One of them are social events. They have a happy hour that they do, and they might get somewhere between 100 and 150 people to show up those. Now, those aren't the environment that I typically go into, but those are ways to be able to get involved. There might be discussion groups. There might be committees, separate, smaller committees that are part of the organization that are supporting. For example, I chair the Workforce Readiness Committee, chair that role and a committee within the local HR organization. So we have 4 members who are part of that. At the end of the day, you're looking, what value do I bring? What value do I bring, and what can I do? How can I help? And that's what we want you to look at. And that's how you would choose to get involved. just a couple more slides here. Because once you get involved, at some point you're going to have to lead. If you've been around a while, it's your turn to lead. This is a great opportunity to be able to network because people like to know who the leaders of organizations are. And by the way, that's how you get to introduce other people to each other. You might just lead an event. Maybe it's a smaller conference. Maybe it is. It's much more of a. I'm actually trying to bring our workforce readiness. We're working with Owens Community College to bring our HR professionals to get a tour of the new Dana Center, the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center. What a tremendous opportunity for our HR people to learn what's happening at Owens, and for Owens to benefit from that. Right. So it's just a little event to visit that, to set up that tour. Sometimes, again, there's some committee opportunities to be able to lead committees, and then there's officer roles. So typically those are a president or a vice president within some type of organization, but it's time to give back. And again, these are tremendous opportunities for you to be able to build your leadership skills, become more of a thought leader or some subject matter leader in that industry or in that kind of space, in that sector that you're interested in. At the end of the day, again, as I mentioned, networking is all about building relationships. This is a tremendous opportunity for you. You have, by the way, what I would like to call, you have a student card. And I'm not talking about the specific card, Owens card that you have. But think about it. You could call up an organization today and say, hi, my name is Bob, and I am a student at Owens Community College. I'm very interested in working in the insurance industry, and I was wondering if there's somebody there I could talk to. I'm going to tell you 100 times out of 100, they're going to say, yes, I will. Let me find somebody who is available right now. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you. I promise you it'll happen almost every single time you do it. Why? Because us business professionals, people are out there, they want to come back and help. They want to help students. That's typically true for one of two reasons. Either one, they had somebody who did it for them, or two, they wish they would have had somebody do it for them. So don't be afraid. Use your student card while you're a student, and you'll get those opportunities to be able to build your network that way. So it is all about building relationships. Again, I thank you. I know we're going to move into a little bit of more of a panel with Steve and I be able to answer some questions. You can see my name is on there. I'm on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn, you want to connect to me, just make sure you put a little note that's add a note to your invite saying, hey, Tom, I was in the session with Owens Community College. I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to make that connection. So, Reddy, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and hopefully we can pull Steve in.
Thank you so much. This was great. And I've been looking forward to this event, and I'm hoping the students are enjoying this just as much as I am, because we learned so much, not only about the importance of networking, but also how you go about doing that. So that is fantastic. And I would like to open this up for the panel, but I need to just very quickly note there is another session for mock interviews where our students might have to leave the session, a few of them maybe, but I want to let them know that this is recorded, and we will share the link with them once this is ready to go online. So if some students have to go, that would be fine, and we can continue with the panel. So I would ask students who have questions to raise their hand, and once we call them, we can unmute. They can unmute themselves to ask the question. If they prefer to use the chat box, that's fine, but asking the question would be a little faster. So with that, I want to welcome Steve to join the panel, and I'm looking forward to students asking questions. So I'm opening it up for everyone in the audience to ask.
Who's going to be the first?
So Alex, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Alex?
Sorry.
Can you hear me? Okay,
first off, I want to say thank you guys for coming out and talking to us. And then I had heard a little bit about like with networking, maybe working somewhere or going to ask somebody to work with them for, like, let's say a couple of weeks just for free, just to get to know them and get to talk to other people. Would you guys also recommend that, and just say anything about that, I guess?
Steve, I'll leave that to you.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
yes.
So your question, like a job shadow?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic idea.
Okay.
And when you talk about, I picked a few things up from Tom's presentation, in one of which is mentors. That'd be a good way to find a mentor. And I can tell you from a job shadow perspective, I have never run into a professional who doesn't want to talk about their profession. People are passionate about what they do. And so any shadowing you could get at any business, particularly in an area that you'd be interested in, or an area that you think you might be interested in, reach out. A lot of companies do it, and it would be a fantastic experience. I've seen teachers actually reach out to shadow places to help them be better teachers, and even they walk away just they learn a lot. So yeah,
Mhm.
I would definitely recommend it.
If you don't mind, would you like recommend? I guess so. I'm planning on becoming a chef or just going into the restaurant business. Would you recommend? I guess going to the restaurant or like just emailing them, or just how would you recommend becoming in contact with them?
I'd probably call.
Okay.
Stopping in you could stop in at a bad time and not get them, right?
Hmm.
But call or email, probably do both. But find a way to get in contact. No matter what route you take, just find a route that works ultimately.
Okay.
Don't
Yeah,
be.
Well,
I would just give you an example. I have one of my students at BG who wants to go into the banking industry. He reached out to a mentor he met during his freshman year, and he was a senior. And the guy works in Boston, and he said, "We'd love to have you learn about our business." So during fall break last year, they flew him to Boston, and he shadowed for a whole week. They paid for his hotel, for his flight. I mean, it was like I told him that is incredible opportunity. I wouldn't say that's always common, but I do think that
mhm.
opportunity to be able to engage with somebody in a industry that you're interested in. Again, as Steve mentioned, I don't know any professionals who aren't interested to share their background and to know, hey, we have people interested in what we do. I can't wait
Mhm.
for them to come work with us or learn from us. Always.
And that's is don't forget that you're a young, talented person up and coming in that profession. They want to know you just as much as you want to know them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. A
Thanks,
lot of
Alan.
good information. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then I will ask Roman to unmute himself and ask the question, and then we'll follow up with Adriana. Okay, I don't know if the person is having, I don't know if they are having trouble, but Adriana, go ahead and ask the question, and maybe Roman can unmute themselves.
Okay. Hi, thank you for speaking to our students today. My name is Adriana. I'm one of the advisors for the School of Business. And it's kind of it piggybacks off of Alex's question, but I'm hoping that Tom or Scott, you could elaborate a little bit more about the with the faculty, how important it is for the students to utilize faculty as networking resources. You gave an example of a student that had connected with somebody from his freshman year, but I like to remind students using the faculty or adjuncts as uh, people that they can put on resumes or job, has references for job interviews. Can you talk a little bit more about encourage students to utilize those resources on campus for networking?
This is very much Tom's lane, so I'll let him hit this one home. I would point out one thing though from Tom's presentation. He talked about faculty, alumni, and mentors. And to me, you can link the three. Get in touch, get to know your faculty, who could help put you in touch with alumni, who could help either be a mentor or find a mentor for you. And so, a lot of things can stem from getting to know your faculty. And then I'll let Tom handle the rest. I mean, this is his lane.
No, I agree, John. I agree, Steve. There's no question about it. And I get to work with our students on campus at BGSU, and I'm working with grad students typically. But it's not uncommon, even as they're kind of serve as a teacher for them, but also as an advisor, where they come to me and say, "Hey, I'm interested in working in a certain industry." Again, it doesn't even matter. I'll use an example. So one of my students, Colin, who has a supply chain management background, he's not sure if he wants to stay in that space, but he even said, "Hey, when I graduate, I think I'm heading to either Austin, or I'm considering Miami, or I'm considering Washington, D.C. I said, "Well, fantastic. I have people in all three of those cities. I think it would be great for you just to be able to have a conversation with them about what it's like to live in there, what it would be like to have a job, where you would want to live." So even just as simple as that. So your faculty are going to be connected to people, not just locally, but nationally. I'm sure of that, and they're there to help. Same with your advisors; they're to help. And just as Steve mentioned, he and I are alums, so we're part of the advisory group. We're part of we're definitely connected. So and your faculty would know that. So you talk to your faculty about who do they know, even who's graduated in the past 5 years, because that might be somebody that you can quickly relate to, because they were in your shoes just a few years ago, as opposed to somebody like me who was a few more than that ago. But they're going to have those connections. So, was there somebody who graduated within the last 5 years who's doing an X job? Fantastic. Go that direction. They can do that. Don't be afraid. They're there to help. Hopefully that covered your question, Andrew. And I see Roman typed his question in, but I can't see it.
Yeah, it looks like the question is, today you touched on handshake etiquette. I was curious, how is best to handle today's awkward pause? Wanting to present confidence and assurance, how can we take the fist bump or nod moment in stride and maintain control of the direction of the interaction?
What do you think, Steve?
I would say embrace it. It's awkward for everybody. I saw this. I'm in Pittsburgh for work right now, and flew in with a few people from the Ohio office that haven't met a bunch of people here. So I literally walked someone around and introduced them to probably 10 people in a matter of 15 minutes, and every single interaction was a little weird. And both parties just embraced it and said, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. I know we can't shake hands right now." Just embrace it and kind of work your way through it. If somebody does the fist bump, I do the fist bump. Keep your distance, and respect people's space. You don't know, as we all know, everybody has a different level of comfort with everything going on right now. So I would just keep your space, and again, just embrace it.
Absolutely. Embrace it and be smart. That's basically it.
Yep. Any other questions? I can ask another question. Can one of you speak to the importance of informational interviews as kind of part of building the network for the students? And if you have any tips on how a student can go about it?
Tom, probably might have some good feedback.
Yeah, I mean, those are priceless. As I mentioned, I think you have a student card. Use that student card. I even tell my MBA students, you still are a BG student. You don't have to tell people you're an MBA student. Just tell them you're a student at BGSU. Professionals want to help. Calling up a Buckeye. I'm going to put Steve on the table here, but call a Buckeye and say, "Hey, I'm a student at Owens Community College. I'm really interested in marketing. I was wondering if there was anybody there that I might be able to talk with who's in a marketing role, or hey, I'm really interested in a marketing role and working for an organization like Buckeye. Is there a chance that I could do an informational interview with somebody?" And I'm going to tell you already, because I know at least one of Steve's team members. that he sent to Bowling Green to do mock interviews like you guys are doing, because he said she could use a little bit of work getting better at interviewing. So it was actually a mutual benefit, is that our students learned, but then she also got to improve her skills. So it's not that uncommon. That's happened more than one time to me, where I've asked one of my contacts like Steve to say, hey, I have a student who would love to do an informational interview. Oh, wait, great. I have somebody who needs to get better at it. So don't be afraid to do that. Use that student card, because once you graduate, you say I'm a graduate, that changes that dynamic, because now it tells me, oh, you want a job, right? As opposed to I'm gathering information about career options. So do it while you're a student. Use that student card as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, and embrace it as a learning opportunity, because the real world of any profession is going to be different than your textbook. And so you may learn in an informational interview, you may learn something that about how it really works, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, and both are great. It's great to learn that you might not like something just as much as it's great to learn that you will like something. And again, to Tom's point, people enjoy it. It's a funny example that Tom used, because we literally, it was that scenario a couple of years ago. It was a marketing student at Owens, and I talked to the marketing director at Buckeye Broadband, and she immediately said, yeah, they could talk to this person about this and this person about that, and just no hesitation. So just reach out.
That's great advice. Any other questions from the audience?
It's like one
I
from
see another hand. Okay, Alex, go ahead. Since we don't have any other folks asking a question, go ahead and ask your question.
Sorry, last question. I'll leave you guys alone. I know you talked about learning the names and being able to say the person's name, which I've a lot of learned about. Names are definitely a big part of business, and I was just wondering, like, what do you guys use for remembering somebody's name? Because I have a huge problem of forgetting people's names. I was just wondering what your guys' best formula, I guess, to say would be to remember.
I'm going to leave that one to Steve, because I'm lucky. I don't have a system, but I tend to remember names. So Steve, what do you?
I don't really have a system either, but I can tell you that I try to remember that it's important. I'm mindful of it, which maybe is a system, but for one, make sure you get a name, and two, when you do that, try to remember it and look at the person. What do they do? All of those things will help you connect with it, because that's the easiest part of the conversation to forget, is that really brief, unexpected introduction, shaking hands, those types of things. So yeah, just be mindful of it, and when you walk away, think about it again. But I don't have any big tricks of the trade or anything like that that you read about sometimes.
Yeah, there's books that recommend, hey, like Tom Turkey. So every time I see Tom, he looks like a turkey, so I'm gonna remember Tom's a turkey, right? Superman Steve, right? So I see Steve with a cape on, so because I usually see Steve wearing a jacket. So that's the cape that Steve always wears, and so I remember Steve because he's a Superman. So silly stuff like that. There's some of the recommendations, but I agree with Steve. Get their name, ask for a business card, and that's why I recommend that you order your own, because people aren't going to remember your name. If they meet 50 people, the chances of your name can be challenging. So get a business card, again, $10 for 250 of them, and hopefully
connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll be able to piece that together down the road.
Yep.
And I know Tom touched on LinkedIn, and I don't know if you guys do longer versions about LinkedIn in your classes, but it's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, very quickly.
I just have one more question.
Second?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
I just have one question. You said where did you to get business cards? Did you say Vistaprint? Is that what I heard?
Correct. Yep. Mr. Prince, like $10.
Perfect. Thank you
Doesn't
so
have to be
much.
fancy. Yep, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just got to have your contact information on it. Because frankly, they're going to keep it for, and most people are keeping those for a day or two, because then they're connecting with you on LinkedIn, or they're sending you a note via email, and boom, you're done. I recommend LinkedIn because if you, let's say you're at a company and they have your company email address, you switch companies, unless you download your contact list, they're gone, right? So I think I have like 3,500 people contacts on LinkedIn, and my wife's like, "How do you know that many people?" And I'm like, "Well, I worked with a company that had 10,000 people around the world. We're just kind of connected to a bunch of them." So it's just a great. It's the old Rolodex for those of us who are old enough to remember this.
And that's a great point to build. Don't build your network and your contacts on anything that's work based, because you're kind of building something on land that isn't yours. And LinkedIn isn't, but it's a totally different scenario there. So that's a great point. Build your LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
Have a personal email address that you use, and don't build your life around your work email and work phone and things of that nature. I can tell you stories of executives that have worked places for a long time, and then they're no longer there, and they look back and they have nothing. They don't know who. They don't have any phone numbers. They don't have any email addresses. They kind of built everything off of the company's profiles, and then they don't have it anymore.
Okay, we will be closing pretty soon. Tom will have.
All right. Well, I would appreciate it once again.
If you can, yeah. Thank you, though. Steve, if you can stay a little longer, we'd appreciate that. We will try to close it within 5 to 10 minutes max.
Sure. I'm not in a rush.
Okay. We have another student who has a question. Colton, go ahead, unmute yourself, and you can ask your question.
You guys see me?
Yes.
Hey, well, first of all, I want to say, Tom, I really appreciated your presentation. I think you put a lot of good stuff out there, just a lot of stuff that I really didn't think about, and also, Steve, I really appreciate some insights you brought, and good to see you again, Reddy.
Hello.
The one question, the one thing that I had thought about, you brought up this one point earlier in the presentation. You had talked about how you said, like, for instance, if you were to, apply for a job through, one of the websites, like, what was it? Jobs.com or whatever. Yeah, Indeed. That was the example you had brought up. You said, 75% of the time, your resume, your information doesn't even reach, the HR representative, whoever's, reviewing that information. How do you become, part of that 25%? Like, what advice would you have, in terms of that? That was something that really kind of stood out to me. Like, what would you recommend?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I'll go first because I have about 2 more minutes before I have to go to another session. But
yeah, no, I apologize. I had a late question.
I'm happy to answer that question. So, because it is a tough question, and my recommendation is having, if you have somebody who can speak to your background and knowledge. So, for example, if I had, let's say I had a student who was interested in working for Buckeye and they were going to apply for a job at Buckeye, as long as I know them well enough, and I do agree that they are fantastic and worthwhile of the discussion, I'm probably sending Steve a note and saying, "Hey, Steve, Sally's going to apply for the HR role that you have at your organization. I think she's at least worth the conversation." So if Steve trusts me, hopefully Steve trusts me, he'll say, "Hey, let's make sure Sally's resume gets in the mix because she's coming in highly recommended from Tom, and I trust Tom. So she's at least going to get a look because she's coming in from a recommendation from somebody that is respectful." Now, I may say, "Hey, Steve, I know Sally's applying. look, if it looks good, then it's worth a conversation. but that's going to tell Steve already that, okay, well, she's probably not his first choice, but at least if I'm able to make a recommendation and say, hey, I think you should talk to Colin. He's a good kid. I know him from, here's the background I have with him. Steve's going to make sure they're looking for that person's. So I guess what I'm saying is building your professional network so you have those opportunities is really what you want to be able to do. So people who can say good things about you and can represent you without you being there. That's kind of, I guess, what I'm pushing at. Steve?
Yeah, I think so. And before I go, Colton Winchester has to be one of the coolest names that has ever existed on the planet.
I appreciate that, sir. That actually means a lot.
But I think what Tom is getting at, I think what Tom is getting at is attack it in more than one way, right? If you go the Indeed route, you're in there with everybody else, and the percentages are the percentages. But what Tom is getting at is network, get your name around, get to know people, and that's an additional avenue to try and get you in front of a hiring.
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt, Steve, but I feel like I've found myself in that situation, quite, at least a couple times, and that was something that really stuck out to me. And that was, I feel like I found myself in that situation a few times, and I just, it really is a tough situation to navigate. And I was kind of, I was assuming you guys would, say something along the lines of something like that, but that's definitely a good
the
point.
other piece, there's an additional piece to it, which is making sure that your resume is where it needs to be.
Right.
I'm sure Reddy could help you with that, or put you in contact with someone that could help you with that. But we could do resumes and interviewing techniques as an entirely different session. But you still want to make sure your resume is on point, that it's clean, that it's getting across the information that you want to get across for that particular position. And that's another important piece of kind of this puzzle, right?
Yeah.
The networking and things like that is great, but if you have a really bad resume, or there's issues or misspellings and flaws with it, even that's going to be held against you if someone like Tom would put in a word for you. So I would say attack it from both ends, really. One side, take a look at your resume, or have someone else, really is the best, have someone else take a look at your resume, and then network, determine what you want to do, right? Whatever field you're trying to get into, or whatever you're trying to do there, look at that field and determine, what trade associations exist, what can I get involved in, how can I upskill, or is there trainings or certifications I can do? All of that helps. It's not just one way, but taking multiple angles at the issue, just increases your opportunity to get in front of that hiring manager and ultimately land the job.
Now, a question I'd have to ask you is, if you were me on my resume, do you think I should put my name in bold print? Do you think that would help me out at all?
Yeah, go for it, man.
That was a joke, but yeah, no, I really do appreciate the advice, sir. That was something.
Yeah,
I really
and feel free to reach out to Reddy, man. I'd be happy to take a look at your resume, or we can talk further. To reach out to Reddy, she can give you my contact info.
Great.
Definitely.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I've been working with Colton for a while, and Steve, I appreciate you saying that. So I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that will be very helpful for him. We will have one more question, and then we'll close. But before I let the student ask the question, since I have still some captive audience, I wanted to let the students know that we have a lot of events coming up. LinkedIn was mentioned. We developed a workshop a couple of weeks ago about building a professional LinkedIn profile. We will have a follow-up event in the spring, so hopefully students will learn how to use their LinkedIn profile to do the networking we just talked about, and look for jobs and do other things professionally. We also will have Steve in a similar situation where he will present for us in the spring about networking within the organization. Like once you get the job, you still need to network with your peers and how to do that successfully. So Steve, I'm counting on you for that one. And there are other events that we are building for the spring semester together with our career friends, but also within the School of Business. We might be sending out a survey to check about times and days that work best for you so we can reach you and you guys can take advantage of these events. So hopefully you'll respond to our survey. And I will leave it at that. So I will ask Khulud to ask his question, and with that question, we'll have to close.
Hi, thank you for this chance, really. I will try to, I'm really already nervous, like this is one, but I am an international student, and I am already I'm working on my English and that, but as a student or as a student like the English it's like a second language, and I have this problem with um, like even if I have a good resume and I've and like okay all these information and that good, but since they hear about my English I feel like people they give me this look, you know. So okay, I am in school to build a new network, and I'm back to school to start from there, build my network like that. But any advice for someone like me, because I am in a point that I'm ready to because like to go out and really meet new people, especially like for example, I study accounting, so I want to be closer from accountant, and that to learn more and be better student really. Is there any advice for someone like me? Help me to how can I start or create my network?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would say the nervousness of networking in general, I think just going out more frequently, doing it more often will make you more comfortable with it, like anything else for the most part. But as far as establishing and building your network, I would go back to Tom's presentation and lean on your faculty and alumni. There's a really good base of alumni that I know that I'm 100% confident in that are ready, willing, and able to help. And so get to your faculty, um, have them put you in touch with some of the alumni, and then the alumni should be able to put you in touch with people in the accounting sector, and you can kind of build it that way. And talking to people or maybe doing some job shadowing in the accounting field should give you access to learn about are there any associations you could get involved with and things of that nature. But if you're having a bit of a hard time, I would lean on your faculty. That's what they're there for. And then your faculty can lean on us that are alumni, and that's what we're here for. And we have an alumni committee on the foundation board, and I can tell you that one of the things that's been kind of a topic of conversation over the course of the last year or so is alumni engagement and trying to get more engaged with the students to help someone just like you. So, I think there's a couple different opportunities and a couple different things you could do there. But starting with your professors and kind of taking it from there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Steve. And if I may add, I can try to figure out some other organizations within Toledo, international organizations that I can reach out to and maybe make some connections for you that way, professional organizations, and definitely the faculty, as Steve mentioned. And we can try and do, I don't know that you can work being an international student, that might be a little more difficult, but at least we can get some informational interviews or maybe a job shadowing and things like that to help you kind of get more comfortable with the profession and what to look for in that field. So I'd be happy to help you with that if you want to reach out to me.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, and that you're taking the most important step, which is reaching out, to your current network, right? In trying to get some help.
See, it's in my situation, it's like okay, I am international because obviously my, but I live in U.S. now, and and I see my future. It's going to be in U.S. And I need to learn more. And again, it's like my first step that I just go back to school, and this is my first semester already. But I'm so glad that all these like this event, for example, like to guide us to learn more and gather information. I really appreciate that, and that's why I'm here today. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And we will have other events. So that's my invitation to the students still remaining. Stay tuned. We have a lot of things lined up for the spring and the fall and so on. We are here to help you. So as long as you want to join our events to benefit, I think we'll have more of those in the future. So stay tuned. And with this, I would like to close our event today. I want to thank Steve very much. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry Tom left, so I extend my thanks to him as well. This was fantastic. And I thank you for being friends of our program, definitely, helping us out, that we can reach out to you. And you've always been very, very helpful. So I appreciate that. I want to thank the students attending. I want to thank also our friends from the Career and Transfer Services for making this thing possible through the PI event and the session itself. And as I said, we'll have more of those coming up. So I want to thank everybody and enjoy the rest of the day.